I move we go back into open session.
Been properly moved and second that we go back into open session. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're back into open session. I will now poll members to certify that to the best of your knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and as identified in the motion for which a closed meeting was convened were discussed and considered by the board. If any member believes that the board varied from the purposes stated for the closed meeting, please state so and the reason prior to casting a vote. Mr. McCotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
All right, we're back into open session. This is the Tuesday, February 18th meeting of the Louisa County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to welcome all of you that are in attendance here in the public meeting room and those of you who are watching online. We will start this meeting, as we do with every meeting, with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join us, please stand. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking your blessing upon this meeting. We ask that you would guide us in our discussions and our decisions as we conduct the business of Louisa County, that we would represent the interests of the citizens and the taxpayers of our county. Lord, we ask that you would bless the leaders of our country, from our president to our governor. Give them the strength and the wisdom to guide our country and our state in a way that you would see fitting. We ask that you would bless those that protect us, both near and far. We ask that you would bless all our military, our law enforcement, and those that serve us to make sure that we continue to live in a land that's free. And I ask all this in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Been properly moved and second that we adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second that we approve the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the bills.
So moved. Second.
Been properly moved and second that we approve the bills. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second that we approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We do have two recognitions tonight. The first one is recognizing Holly Grove Volunteer Rescue Squad and Lake Anna Rescue Squad Emergency Technicianal, I guess I got that right, class of 2024. I see all of you here, so we're going to have you all come up front and stand here in front of the dais facing the audience.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. This is a resolution recognizing Holly Grove Volunteer Rescue Squad and Lake Anna Rescue Squad Emergency Medical Technicians Class of 2024. Whereas emergency medical technicians, or EMTs, are a vital public service, and the dedicated individuals who provide life-saving care to our community are essential to the health, safety, and well-being of Louisa County residents and surrounding counties. And whereas the EMT class provides students with the knowledge, skills, and practical training required to perform their duties effectively and with confidence, and whereas students spend 250 hours of class time that includes rigorous coursework, hands-on training, and clinical experiences designed to prepare graduates to handle the demands and challenges of emergency medical services. And whereas members of the EMT class commit to striving for excellence in all aspects of training, including academic knowledge, hands-on skills, and field experience, supporting each other in your educational journey by fostering a positive and collaborative learning environment, demonstrating professionalism in our interactions with instructors, classmates, and the communities we will serve, seeking feedback and self-improvement to ensure that we're always learning, growing, and adapting to the demands of the EMT profession, and committing to the values of compassion, integrity, and dedication as we work toward becoming highly skilled and responsible EMTs. And whereas the following individuals have successfully completed the EMT training program and demonstrated exceptional commitment to public service: Tyler Anderson, Eric Bishop, Abigail Bryant, Joseph Farrar, Rachel Farrar, Danielle Krug, Abdul Mirza, Catfish Newton, Dalton Nixon, Elijah Sanders, and Christian Summers. And whereas these students pledge to carry forward these values as they move through their training and into careers as EMTs, with a commitment to serving our communities with excellence, compassion, and respect. Now therefore be it resolved that the Louisa County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes and commends these outstanding individuals for their achievement in completing the EMT training program and for their dedication to serving our community. Congratulations and thank you to you all. I will ask Supervisor Barlow to present this resolution.
Thank you all on behalf of the board for what you've done. My wife and I decided we would try to do that civic duty and come take the first aid class. And we went through it and it expired before we got through the next one. So for somebody that's volunteering to spend 250 hours towards your community service, I don't know how you can beat that. That is perfect. And it's a great honor. I was at your graduation. Didn't speak, should have, but I get a second chance. You all, it's just amazing what you do for your county. And Ms. Ford here helps you all out and great instructor and a huge asset to Louisa County. So on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and Louisa County, I present this to you. Let me get over here, out the way, so that I don't mess up any of the pretty faces. Thank you.
Jennifer, if you or any one of your students would like to address the board or say anything, you can certainly use the podium, the microphone to do that. You don't have to. No, you don't have
I'm not
to.
usually at a loss of words, but I
There, okay, well.
take advantage of that.
Well, as Mr. Barlow said, as you all make your way back to your seat, thank you. Especially, it's great to see so many young people volunteering to be EMTs in this county because while we're a blended agency with volunteers and a career staff, we count on, none of our citizens care when they call 911, whether they're volunteer or their career. They just care that they're well-trained, they have great equipment, and they're there to answer the call in a timely manner. So, especially to see so many young people, we thank you for your dedication to the community. And Jen, we thank you for your dedication. I mean, every time I go to something, you're there. So that's really what makes Louisa County special. So again, thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Anybody else have anything they'd like to
Chairman,
address?
also thank you to the members of the Lake Anna Rescue Squad. I see you guys.
Yeah, we do have. I do see two members there. Yeah, you guys were quiet. I mean, Alexander, you're not usually that quiet. So. All right, Mr. Goodwin.
Yep. The next resolution is honoring Garland Knuckles, so I'll ask Mr. Knuckles to come forward and you can stand up front and face the audience if you'd be so kind, sir.
Yes, sir. We're honoring Garland Knuckles for years of dedication and service to Louisa County and as mayor of the town of Louisa.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public, the resolution reads as follows. Whereas Garland Knuckles has served the town of Louisa, Virginia with distinction and unwavering dedication during his tenure as mayor, demonstrating exemplary leadership and a steadfast commitment to the well-being of the community. And whereas during his years of service, Garland Knuckles has worked tirelessly to enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Louisa through innovative initiatives, effective governance, and a collaborative approach to addressing the needs of the town. And whereas Mr. Knuckles has been a steadfast supporter of initiatives that promote youth development and family engagement, including his dedication to the Louisa Arts Center, where his advocacy has fostered cultural enrichment and creative expression in the community. And whereas Mr. Knuckles has also ensured significant enhancements were made to the town park, adding recreational facilities that provide a safe and welcoming space for families and children to gather, play, and connect, further reinforcing his commitment to programs that strengthen community bonds and opportunities for growth. And whereas his leadership was instrumental in the implementation of the enhanced 911 system in Louisa County, as well as its subsequent expansion to Orange and Fluvanna counties, greatly improving emergency response capabilities across the region. And whereas Mr. Knuckles championed the adoption of the Certified Emergency Medical Dispatch, EMD, program in Louisa County, ensuring dispatchers received advanced training to provide life-saving assistance during medical emergencies, a program that has saved numerous lives and served as a model for other communities. And whereas his dedication to public service extended beyond emergency response systems and community infrastructure to include numerous initiatives that have enriched the lives of Louisa residents and enhanced the town's reputation as a welcoming, forward-thinking, and family-focused community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Louisa County Board of Supervisors does hereby recognize and commend Mayor Garland Knuckles for his extraordinary service, visionary leadership, and his unwavering commitment to the welfare of our community. Thank you for your service, Mr. Mayor. I will ask Supervisor Jones and Supervisor Woodward.
You know me, when I talk sometimes I start to cry, but this is too important for me to cry. I'm going to tell a little story. In 1996, I was one of you all. I was just a little EMS rat, volunteering, wanting to expand my career. I came to Louisa Sheriff's Office to work at the 911 Center, where I was interviewed and hired by Garland. And little did I know that from that day, I found a mentor and a beacon of light, and somebody who's always a voice of reason for me throughout my life here in Louisa. And I thank you for that, and thank you for your service, your selfless service that you've given this community. From working within emergency services to being a mayor, you embody it. If there's anybody who has just given of himself to make the citizens of Louisa, whether it's the town or the county, better, and make the county or the town better, it has been you. Thank you for your service.
And thank you, Rachel. And Garland, there's really nobody else in Louisa County that has contributed as much in so many different ways as what you have. I mean, we know there's a lot of people in Louisa County that do a lot of things. You probably have the biggest heart of anybody that I know, and you've just taken all kinds of people under your wings and done things for them, whether it be in a political situation as a mayor or a town council member, or whether it be through fire and EMS. You and Jackie have been just absolutely wonderful to the fire and EMS, and particularly the volunteer rescue squad, for years, and you continue to be. So we are so grateful for that, and thank you so much. This is just a very small thing that we could do, but we certainly greatly appreciate everything you've done. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if you would like to address the board or have anything to say, please feel free to use the microphone, sir. Use the mic, so we can get it.
Everyone.
It'll be recorded forever.
Normally I'm loud when I get up here, but thank y'all very much for the recognition. It's special. I've done over the years what I did because of the citizens, my neighbor, and that's what I looked at the young folks as I said I wasn't going to say many words, but I'll say just a few. I looked at the young ones coming on with the Holly Grove group just now, and that's where it's at, and that's where we need to focus to get our volunteers. I think the volunteers are, people are growing back into the volunteer system again, and I am excited to see that. I'm not able to work with them and do, but I'm excited and supportive of them, and I hope that y'all will continue to be that way also. And thanks to everybody, and that's all. But I appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything they want to add to that?
Yes, the quick.
Mr. Barnes?
Garland, I've been knowing you for 120 years and vice versa. You were mayor before you were mayor. So you've been mayor a long time. But I want to thank you, really, because your service and just help your attitude, and I'll never forget what you've done and meant to Louisa County.
It's,
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to add, I was trying to think how I would describe you this evening, and you truly are a gentleman who has a heart of service.
Yeah.
Your service to this community, from Fire and EMS to the 911, 911 department to the mayor, just your involvement in the community. You truly have this community in your heart, and you just epitomize a gentleman, and I use the word gentleman because you're a true gentleman, that has a heart of service. I appreciate the example you set for your family, for the community, for everybody that serves or tries to serve the citizens, and I appreciate our friendship, and I know we'll continue to have lunch together like we do in the past, but you're very deserving of this honor tonight. So thank you for your lifetime and heart of service to Louisa County.
thank you.
Thank you again.
I will, Mr. Chairman, also, as far especially the people in it now, you can't do it without support here and your family behind you as well.
True.
And that's
True.
what it takes to get through it. And so I do want to say that. I want to say one thing. It popped through my mind. I think I've said 5 or 6 one things, but this one was 19 something. We came to the Board of Supervisors one night, and we were carrying these little white hospital pagers is all we had. We had 2 of them, and one of them was broke that you could use when you were on duty. You either had to have that or stay by the telephone. And we came in here, and I forgot how much money. It was like $400. $3,000 we were asking for to buy a few pagers. And went out with our pants down and a whipping.
Oh, my.
And you know, to turn around and see the budget that is for fire rescue today, I'm glad it finally turned around, but that was in the, I believe it was in the 80s, but it was a rough night. And I want to appreciate y'all for what you do as well to turn around the funding.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to public comment period. I don't have any cards, but during the public comment period, you can address the board on any item that is not a public hearing. We do have 4 public hearings tonight, so if you're here to talk during a public hearing, wait for the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board on any item that's not a public hearing tonight?
I just want to you caught me off guard to speak to you all, but I do want to reiterate what
Jen, give your name and.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jennifer Ford. I am a volunteer with Holly Grove Volunteer Rescue Squad, as well as a trainer in the county. And ever since I came to this county in 2007, I've fallen in love with it, and I've been able to work with you guys at the Parks and Rec with Jane Shellhorse, and then through volunteering with Holly Grove and teaching and training the people of this community and serving it. And so over the years, I just want to thank you for your support and for your dedication. And I've seen many of your faces at our events, and whether it's Louisa County, whether it's Lake Anna, whether it's over at Holly Grove, you all support us very well. And so I do want to thank you for what you guys do and how you support the students. These guys have worked tremendously hard to do it. The curriculum is very different than it was back in the 90s when I first took it. And so it's been a little bit of a learning curve, and it continues to change. And as I'm currently taking my paramedic and continuing my education, it's just neat to be able to continue to serve in the capacity of educator in the county. So thank you for your trust. Thank you for your support with the training supplies. And I love that we are able to work together, both career and volunteer, as one cohesive unit, because you're right. When it comes to an emergency, nobody's carding me. Nobody's asking if I'm a volunteer or if I'm paid. They just want to know that we're there and that we have the tools that we need to be able to serve our community. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your recognition. And thank you for all that you do, because it's not easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Move on to information discussion items, unfinished business, we don't have that. New business, we don't have any new business action items. We're just going to go almost straight to public hearing. Committee reports, do we have committee reports?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to remind the board members that there are quite a few openings on the Commission on Aging. Each district gets 2 representatives, 2 appointments. So if you could, at your earliest convenience, find someone and appoint them. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I apologize because I got some vacancies in my district. Is there any way, I know we one time before put it on that newsletter, vacancies, and
That'd be a good idea.
yeah, put it on the newsletter with the vacancies and contact the district, and maybe we can get some action that way.
Standard Setting Cuckoo District, our representative is the chairperson of that. I wanted to address Ms. Wilbur about that. And I do have 2 new people that are going to be attending a meeting to see if they will
Great.
be interested in being appointed.
Awesome.
So thank you for the reminder.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Anybody else with committee reports? All right, we'll move on to board appointments. I don't believe we have any
Well,
board appointments tonight.
Looks like
do
we got an MOG expired here on Bill Konachek. Was he interested in re-upping? Do we
Who
know?
is it?
It says Bill Konachek. And there's an unexpired term too. We need two citizen reps, looks like.
Tony, what page is it?
It's 37 to 215. 7 to 215. Bill, want to serve back on the MOG? Do you know?
I have to ask.
So we have the MOG's next page right there. That's what I was looking at.
Mr. Chair.
Well, this is a good opportunity, and I'm sure Mrs. King or Mr. Goodwin can work with Mrs. King to put this out in the Informed Citizen. You know, one of the hardest things it is finding
Sure.
citizens, representatives to serve. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I believe that Elaney had reached out to me about Bill Konchak, and he and his wife had been away, but I think she checked with him, and he said that he would like to continue
So
to serve.
how about we move to approve him again tonight, so there'll be his meeting coming up here, so let's go ahead and do that, and then if nobody objects, if he says no, we can reappoint at that point in time. I move it. You
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other appointments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, he is appointed. But it is a good idea for us to look. I have tried to fill my vacancy on the Commission on Aging and not having a lot of luck, but we'll
Understand.
continue to work on that. Mr. County Administrator.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My packet, or my report starts on page 38 of your packet. A few dates to make sure that you've got on your calendars. We don't have dates for the Fridays After 5 concert series, but that will be taking place this summer, and we do have locations for those. So please do keep an eye out for more details on those coming up. They're a lot of fun. Also, the Easter Extravaganza that Parks, Recreation, and Tourism puts on will be on April the 12th this year, so make sure to let your constituents know about that. A new format that we're working on for the Fire and Emergency Services report to try to get that data into something that you and your constituents can most easily grasp and use for decision-making and record-keeping processes. So more on that to come. It's kind of a simplified format in this particular report. I don't have the page number in front of me, but we will be adding 3 years' worth of back data to that as well. So watch that format as we move forward in future monthly reports. Proud to report that the construction here in administration, specifically community development, is largely complete. We're already getting some compliments on that. It's
Good,
great
too.
to have them back in the building. The space looks great. My thanks to the staff in community development for doing a great job, being flexible, to general services and our contractors for coming in on time and within budget. It was a good project, and I think most importantly, it will better serve the citizens. It gives them, everybody, more room to move around, to meet, to communicate with staff. So that was an important update. An update from the Water Authority, as I know a couple of you know, they're getting ready to start the sludge vac project work at the Northeast Creek Water Treatment Plant. That's a capital project that's been contemplated for several years, and it was funded by the board in FY25. The work's going to start next week. It'll take about 30 days, and it will cut production in the plant pretty significantly during that 30-day process. So the Water Authority staff is going to work around the clock to offset that loss in production. They are also going to ask users just on the Northeast Creek system to voluntarily conserve water to the best of their abilities over the next 30 days to just kind of mitigate that.
Not
Make
because we have a supply problem, but because we have yes,
we
want to be clear.
Just an update in the plan. Again, this is an update on that system that's been contemplated for years.
Yes.
And they've done a number of things to mitigate that, and the voluntary conservation would be part of that. They've also brought on the big 600,000 gallon tank online as well to mitigate those fluctuations. So Pam has communicated regularly with us on that, and the project again will start next week, and hopefully we'll move smoothly. And then last but not least, just would encourage everybody here and online to just keep an eye on social media over the next 48 hours. We've got a winter storm coming in. As of right now, we have not made any decisions to change operations. We are on the fringes of that storm right now. Forecasts can change, and they may impact operations tomorrow, so be safe and stay in touch with us on social media. And call if you have any questions regarding operations. And that concludes my prepared remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Goodman,
Yes, sir.
can we, and you work with the chairman, next meeting after, can we get Firefly back
Yes,
for an
Absolutely.
update?
Yes.
On where we are with the internet? Okay.
absolutely.
I issued a forecast on Friday for the snow, still holding true, somewhere between 2 and 70 inches, and then it's going to be cold. So,
We're going to have weather tomorrow.
You, sir, should be a paid weather
I
man.
should, I should be.
Even if you miss it, doesn't snow at all?
Doesn't matter.
You'd still be a hero.
You still get paid, yeah. I wish I could be as wrong as often as the weatherman is. So. All right, we'll move on to public hearings. Our first public hearing is an ordinance to adopt amendments to the Louisa County Chapter Code 14 Animals. Who is handling that for us?
Patricia will do that, and she's joining us on Teams tonight.
All right.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Good evening.
The ca- Hello. The county proposes the amendment of Chapter 14, Animals of the Louisa County Code. The first section to be amended is Section 14-2A, Dogs Not to be Off Premises, Enforcement. Under that section, we propose to add several sections. One is, it shall be unlawful for the owner of a dog to place such dog or allow it to be placed in the custody of any person not physically capable of maintaining effective control of such dog. Another section to be added states a violation of this section shall constitute a Class 4 misdemeanor for the first offense. In addition, a second violation of this section within 1 year of a conviction of the first violation shall constitute a Class 2 misdemeanor. And finally, a third or subsequent violation of the section within 2 years of conviction of the second or subsequent violation shall constitute a Class 1 misdemeanor. The second section that we're proposing to amend is Section 14.30, which is impoundment of animals running at large. According to this section, any animal other than a dog, cat, or wild animal found running at large in the county may be taken by animal control officer or other officer and impounded at the animal pound or other facility and thereafter disposed of under the same terms and conditions as prescribed in Section 14-4 for companion animals. And that is the last update that we propose on this. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That's in page 111 and 112 of our board packet.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions of Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Class 4 misdemeanor, I'm not in law enforcement, I'm thinking that may be $250 fine? Does anybody verify that? Maybe Patricia can verify that?
Mrs. Smith, Ms. Smith? can you
Yes, you
verify
said a Class 4 misdemeanor is $250. That's correct. No jail time.
No jail time.
It's basically just
Yes.
like a ticket, right? A speeding ticket.
Right.
Except you were
Misdemeanor.
speeding.
Yeah. Nope, you're violating our dog ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
that? Yes.
I would just like to make the comment that we spend an inordinate amount of time working and perfecting dog ordinances, and that's not a reflection of you, Ms. Smith, because you just got here, but it just seems like it is much ado about nothing. If you have a dog problem, pick up the dog and take care of the dog and be done with the dog. So I've said my piece. I'm done.
Any other comments before I
Mr.
open
Chairman.
public? Yes, ma'am.
I think that one of the biggest reasons that we're having a dog issue is the county is growing. And I think people are just not following, good citizenship and keeping their dogs on their property. This also does exclude hunting dogs, correct? And working farm dogs.
That's correct.
Anything else?
I
Yes,
just
sir.
have a question. I know that dogs running at large is certainly what has prompted this, but, we had an emergency ordinance at one point, and like Mr. Williams said, we've been back and forth on this stuff, so with this draft that we have before us, which seems pretty lengthy, I guess it's hard to tell on here what is an actual change.
Oh, it's red.
It's red.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in red?
It might
Okay.
not be online, but it is in your packet.
Here you go. Hand him that page and that page.
What section is it? I'll look down.
1428 and 1430.
1428.
Okay, what,
Is it red? Does it show up on,
it probably does at 1428. There it is.
there you go.
So,
1430.
are these the only changes to the current ordinance that we have? What's in red here?
Yes, and then there's one on the next page. Right there.
That's what Patricia read. She read, that's it.
Okay, well, what I was getting at, you look through this whole thing and then what's in red is all that's being changed.
Correct.
I got
Proposed
you.
change.
What's that?
Proposed change. yes.
Right.
It's presumptive. It's all being changed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, if we, if we do take these dogs, I guess impoundment is what happens. Let's say Mr. Williams has a dog, although I don't think,
This Williams?
You
or
probably don't have
Maybe
a
the
dog.
other one.
right.
Maybe it's the other Mr.
Either
Williams.
one. Let's say you have a dog. It's running it loose and it's taken by a animal control officer or an officer, that dog is impounded. Is that the right term? And that's taken to our county facility. Do we have the capacity to, let's say there's a lot of these things that are going on. It seems to me that there are probably a lot. We're not worried about that. We're not worried about capacity at the animal shelter.
We are. We have a CIP project.
We are worried about capacity at the animal
Okay.
shelters.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
definitely do.
just under normal circumstances.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I think, I think this all really does come down to kind of answer your question, that not every dog running at large is going to be picked up and taken to our shelter, because the officer has discretion. He can return it if it's somebody's dog who just, as they have spoken here before, somebody's dog who just got off leash or escaped their yard, they're actively looking for it. That's not a dog at large. That's a runaway dog that they return and help assist. So I think we're looking for the repeat violators who are blatantly ignoring our animals.
Okay.
Or the law.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I see where the second and third violation is clearly clearly defined here. The first violation is what I got a little problem with. Is a class 4 misdemeanor on the first violation.
Can I interrupt you a minute?
Go ahead.
This may help you. I'm going to suggest an amendment in a little bit. In the amendment, and I've talked to Mrs. Smith just on my as an individual. The amendment would be, currently the proposal is a violation of this section would constitute a class 4 misdemeanor for the first offense.
Right.
This would be the amendment that I would suggest. But where a warning notice is more suitable, given the circumstances, a notice of warning may be issued for the first violation.
That's the only one I had a
like
heartburn
that.
with.
So again, it doesn't, there is such a thing as officer discretion, which we see, but I'm not worried about today. I'm worried about 10 years from now. And if it's not built into the code that allows that discretion, or specifically that was of a concern to me. So I did talk to Ms. Smith about that, and when we come back from the public hearing, I'll hand this off to somebody, and somebody can make that
We're on the
amendment.
same page.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I thought we might be.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
does anybody know when the folks come down whose dog has been impounded, do they have to pay a fee to get their dog back?
That depends.
That was my next question.
I can answer that one a little bit. So I live on the side of 33, and I have a really nice, pretty dog, Australian Shepherd, and somebody was riding by one day and decided to pick my dog up from probably in front of my field or my yard, which is inside of a collared fence, and take it to the shelter and said, hey, if nobody claims this dog, I sure would like to have it. The good news was with the collar, they figured out who it was, and they called me, and Anderson called me and he said, we have your dog. I said, why do you have my dog? He said, well, somebody brought it in. So certain cases you do have to pay a fee. If it's picked up in certain cases, you don't have to pay a fee. I did not have to pay a fee because somebody picked my dog up, probably out of my yard on the side of the road, and took it to the pound for me.
So what
That's
you're
fine.
saying, though, is, under normal circumstances, there would be a fee.
I think yes, there's a fee, and the fee is $25.
I was trying to remember off the top of
I can't remember. It's something like
Yeah.
$25 or
Okay.
something like that to get your dog back, I think.
That was my question.
Now, my dog did pick up kennel cough in the few hours it was there.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So,
So,
There's a vaccination.
Ms. Smith, I have a question on section 14.30. Impoundment of animals running at large. Any animal other than a dog, cat, or wild animal found running at large in the county may be taken by the animal control officer or other officer and impounded at the animal pound or other facility, and thereafter disposed of under the same terms and conditions as prescribed in section 14-4 for companion animals. Would
Yes.
this apply to livestock
yes.
that gets into the road, into the interstate,
Well, that's
you know,
not a companion
goats in
Yes.
front of school
No.
buses, stuff like that?
Doesn't say that.
This is
That's
a
correct.
companion
Does not.
What is it?
She says, it says they're subject to the same
For companion
rules
animals.
as companion animals. But read the first part. What's the first part say?
But it says any animals, but then it's
Any animals.
contradictory because
No,
a companion,
No, read right before that in 14.4.
any animal other than a dog or a cat or a wild animal found running at large in the county may be taken to the animal control officer and pounded and blah, blah, blah. Therefore disposed of under the same terms for companion animals.
Disposed of under the
Got
same
it.
terms, but you can
Okay.
pick up any animal you want to. That's just plain reading of the English language.
That's on
So,
page
yes.
112 of
Thank
your
you.
packet.
Thank you for giving me my English lesson today, Mr. Williams.
You're welcome.
Not the
Yes.
mineral.
No, this is the bad one, not the good one.
So I just wanted to make sure that we all saw
Pick up a wild
that.
animal.
Any other questions for Ms. Smith?
Why would
Word.
we pick up a wild
Miss-
animal?
All right, hold on.
What in it, in this particular 1430,
Is that a wild animal?
says that this does not apply to hunting dogs?
Yeah, we got a horse running
Well,
around
state law specifically it says in our ordinance now, but state
For a
law
companion, I get that
specifically
part, yeah.
exempts hunting dogs and working farm dogs from county ordinances.
So that's in,
It's in the ordinance. It would be in the ordinance.
That is, it's already there.
14-28.
That's
here it is.
B.
It's 1428B. For the purpose of this section, a dog shall be deemed to be running at large while roaming or running off the property of its owner or custodian, and not under the owner or custodian's immediate control, provided that no dog shall be deemed to be running at large in violation of this section if it shall be engaged in lawful hunting or training for hunting under the direction of its owner or custodian, and shall thereafter stray from lawful hunting for training or hunting, or if the dog shall be engaged to assist in a farming activity which is defined as raising, managing, and using agricultural animals to provide food, fiber, or transportation, provided that such owner or custodian shall place such dogs under his immediate control within a reasonable period of time. And that's long-winded, but that makes us in compliance with state code. And again, I will say, to Mr. Williams' point, we have spent an inordinate amount of time
Inordinate.
We have.
on this, but part of the issue is how the magistrates have interpreted our current code, when you would have some magistrates interpret the code with the intent that the board meant, and then other magistrates say that your code isn't specific enough. And this issue has come out of, Ms. Jones mentioned, we're a growing county. I have 4 dogs.
Three.
I've had my dogs get out, and I was panicked. And thank God somebody found them. And when I got them, they were in the back seat of an Orange County Sheriff's car. They looked like convicts. But, there's a difference between responsible dog ownership and people that are irresponsible. And there is a huge difference, which we have seen in the last couple of years, with vicious dogs roaming at large and getting off of the property, and people not being able to maintain those dogs. And when animal control has been put in a situation when they impound those dogs, but the magistrate does not interpret our code because they don't think it's clear enough, but the next magistrate would. This is an attempt to clean that up, but at the same time give a lot of discretion for people who are responsible dog owners.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Smith, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're definitely the legal expert. That's not me. But I think one critical part of this is by making these things a misdemeanor and setting forth a schedule for that, it puts that in the control of our animal control officers to move forward with that process rather than having to use the magistrate's office. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So.
It's written, it's amended to clarify that. The other ordinance, like you all already mentioned, that sometimes they would say it was okay, the way it was written, they would enforce it, and sometimes not. This is written so it will be enforced on a consistent basis.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to the board on this public hearing?
Yes, we have one.
One card?
Miss Ware.
Miss Ware?
Sorry, I wasn't doing my derelict of duties there.
Ma'am, use the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You can
Pull it down to you. There you go.
Hold on, let me start. I started your time when you said good evening. So name and voting district.
Amy Wayer, I reside in the Jackson District. As you know, I addressed the board previously about animals in the neighborhood that have been causing trouble over and over and over. Property damage, knocking down a child who had to have the rescue squad called, knocking down my mother, who is 87 years old with dementia, biting twice a caregiver that I employ for my mother. It's just been going on, and animal control's been saying not much they can do. These animals are also in the roadways, which you all addressed last year, which worked for a while. But it's just a deadly accident waiting to happen. After I spoke to you, my family took on the burden of constructing a fence to protect my mother and her property. And last month, during the snowstorm, the horse and/or donkey knocked the fence down to get to the bird feeder, as evidenced by footprints in the snow. They were also a mile down the road at another property I own. So they're still out wandering the property. So I was quite appreciative to see that the county administration and the board is addressing this problem so quickly. I think the proposed language in section 14.30 addressing impoundment of animals is a major step in the right direction. I agree with Mr. Williams entirely. You couldn't be more clear. Animals that are not dogs, cats, or wild animals. That includes everything in my book. Seemed very clear. The only problem I have is with the word may. May pick it up. I understand why it's there, but I hope you'll understand if I'm a little nervous about animal control having that much leeway, because they have already told me they don't have facilities. If they don't see it, they can't do anything about it, I know the farming community also is worried. So I would suggest adding the word habitually and then make it shall. And you can define habitually. You gave dogs 3 chances there with the three different levels, maybe more than 3 times in an 18-month period, and then they shall be taken. I'm just worried that they don't have facilities to take these animals, so it's not going to stop. I've actually printed that out if you want to look at my suggestion, but that's a minor thing, I think, and thank the board and the county administration for jumping on this so quickly. That was in November when I came. I'm thrilled beyond belief, and my family and I are very appreciative of everybody who's been working to do something about this. And we are not the only ones. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else that would wish to address the board on this subject? All right, if not, we'll close the public comment period. Come back to the board. Do any other discussion?
I have a question. I think this is going to be more for Ms. Smith. It is something that was brought up to you and I by a constituent in my district, wanting to know about the permissibility of video evidence. Is that something that can be written into, or something that would just be, I know if you go to a court, that permissible evidence is determined by the judge as far as video, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you get the email I forwarded you today?
I did
about
not.
this? Okay.
No. Was there an email about that?
So the issue would from the sheriff's department is that a whole lot of dogs look the same.
Oh, that is true. Identifying, yeah.
A whole lot of dogs look the same.
Yep.
So video evidence in and of itself of a XY dog is usually not enough to show a violation. But the suggestion was that if you have an issue and take a picture or a video when animal control shows up, that is all part of their ability to investigate the complaint.
I don't see the email today.
I think I forwarded it today or yesterday.
That is absolutely fine. I just wanted to make sure we got that out there in the discussion, because I know this this person has come and spoken before us, brought this up to us, so I wanted to make sure that we were addressing it publicly about the video evidence, and that the sheriff's office has reasons not to put that, and that makes perfect sense to me.
Anyway, yes, sir.
This is what we're talking about now has come up before, in that the animal control, it was I guess in the past, and maybe this addresses it, but the animal control officer was required to see the animals on the place or running at large, rather than, I think at one point we had a lady that had pictures of the goats on top of her car and, stuff like that. And that evidently at the time, I think when we did the emergency ordinance and stuff, that we were told that wasn't admissible. He couldn't use that. The officer had to see it. So I would hope that there's something in here that will enable the officer to pick animals up when she doesn't see them, and there's sufficient evidence to show that there is something. Because I think part of the problem that we've run into in the past is by the time the animal officer gets there, once called, the animals are gone somewhere else. And that was part of the problem before. So is anything in here that maybe corrects that or enables you to use something other than the animal control officer actually having to witness it themselves?
Well, so the way it's written right now, what can happen, even the person who actually sees an animal in their yard or a vicious dog in the yard takes a picture, they can actually enforce this themselves with their pictures. Because of the way it's written, it's written that it's a violation. They can actually go to the court themselves on this. So so if an animal control person doesn't come and actually see it, or there's no real evidence and they have evidence, it's permissible. And other counties are doing that too, where the actual homeowner has the pictures, can go and enforce it.
Well, I think that would be real hard to do for an individual homeowner to take somebody else to court. It'd be like a civil action.
It is a
I'm
civil
guessing.
action.
No, wouldn't they go to the magistrate's office to obtain?
Yes,
It
that's
would be
correct.
to obtain a warrant. It would be the same if you had somebody recklessly driving and do something stupid in front of you, and you wanted to go obtain a warrant. It did not happen in front of a police officer. You could, as long as you can identify the person and say, face, who they were, you can go to the magistrate's office and obtain a warrant.
And then it would be the county taking it to court, and not
Yeah.
the individual?
Commonwealth attorney.
Yeah, the Commonwealth
The
attorney.
Commonwealth attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, and then at that time too, probably a police officer, or in this case, animal control officer would get involved and help with the investigation, and then it would go on to court.
I just recall when the animal control officer came before us before, there was the case of where the lady had all sorts of documentation, but she couldn't do anything because she was not there and witnessed it herself. So does this help take care of some of that, I guess?
Yes, it was because the way it was written last time. This one makes it clear what a violation is, what a conviction is. The other one was vague on that. So some people read it that it had to be 3 before you could go. This was very clear what happens at stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 of violations. So this is totally different from the prior ordinance.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Ms. Ware, thank you for your comments here. I have a couple of issues with your comments. Number one, they can't take them till it's more than 3 times in an 18-month period. And if you leave it the way it is, they can take them on the first occurrence right now. I mean, if your animal's causing a problem and destruction, they can pick them up on the first occurrence right now. The only problem I have with the word may and shall is some discretion, and I use that carefully because we had an incident in the district a couple of years ago where there was about 3 cows that ran at large for 2 years, and probably over the course of about 3,000 acres, they would poke their heads out, and it was a pretty remote area, and come in somebody's yard, and they'd be gone again. And so I think shall compels that the county must do it. And I mean, I don't know that that's a that's the county can do it and may do it, but shall, I think, just puts a whole new nuance to it where do we have to go out and then hire somebody to track the cattle? And, oh, no, I'm serious. No, and they did. It's what it took. Do they have to set up traps? Do we have to, let's take these three or four road cows we had for a couple of years terrorizing the neighborhood in this 3,000 acre area that's a lot of remote, but a lot of houses on the fringe. I mean, does the county have to then go out, does animal control wouldn't have to go out and spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to round up 3 cows? I don't know the answer to that question. So I think the intent with May, I think the animal control officer would have a compulsion to want to. I was involved. I mean, they're like, "Are these your cows?" I don't think so. I mean, but I get calls and I'd go look and we finally figured out whose they were, and then we finally figured out what their tendencies and habits were. But it took a long while because it was a big tract of land. So there are circumstances. I think it's probably written probably as good as we're going to get it, to be honest with you. I think if we have something that's out and causing a problem and it needs to be picked up, then let's make it something easier, like maybe a goat, because the goat's easier to pick up than a cow is. I would certainly want them to grab the goat and take it to the impoundment if it was causing a traffic hazard or something like that, not just shoo the goat out the road. I mean, so it feels to me like this accomplishes that. Thank you for your comments. I think they're good, and hopefully you can get your particular problem handled quickly.
You want to make a motion with that amendment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
should this happen to pass tonight, as read, there's nothing that says we couldn't come back and adjust it in the future. Is there not?
Exactly.
It's obvious.
Yep.
So
Yes,
even
we
if it's
have-
not
we
a
have done that.
perfect deal, let's not get perfect stand in the way of good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I like to move for a motion, but I like to change the first violation. And where it says a violation of this section shall constitute a Class 4 misdemeanor for the first offense, but where a warning notice is more suitable given the circumstances. A notice of warning may be issued for the first violation.
So that's section E.
Section E.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
All right, is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you.
What's next?
Let me find my agenda.
CUP.
The next is a resolution to approve or deny conditional use permit CUP 2024-08, Arcola Towers LLC applicant Clarence and Evelyn Washington, owners, Stuart Squire agent. Mr. Eglin.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Tom Eglin, Jr. I am a Deputy Director of Louisa County's Community Development Department. Before you tonight, a request for the issuance of a conditional use permit for a 197-foot-tall monopole telecommunications tower with a 2-foot-tall lightning rod for a total height of 199 feet in the Agricultural A2 zoning district in accordance with Section 86-154 permitted uses, with a conditional use permit in Section 86-665 to allow for a wireless communication facility greater than 100 feet in height. The subject property is located on Charles Lane, Route 707, approximately 0.05 miles from Courthouse Road, Route 208, and is further identified as tax map parcel 56-15, comprised of 6.49 acres, located within the Patrick Henry election district. The 2040 Louisa County Comprehensive Plan designates this area of Louisa County as rural outside of any designated growth area. The proposed tower is located between both the Ferncliff and Louisa growth areas and will serve those traveling on Courthouse Road in addition to the citizens living and working in the area that subscribe to the wireless carriers that co-locate on the proposed tower. Staff has provided analysis of the proposed project's impact to the 2040 Public Facilities Plan on pages 129 to 130 of the staff packet. A letter of intent to locate on the tower from Verizon Wireless can also be found on packet pages 191 of the staff packet. The County Wireless Telecommunication Consultant Alteris has provided an analysis which can be found on packet pages 198 to 202, with a recommendation of approval once a NEPA study is concluded. The applicant has provided documentation that a NEPA review is in process, which can be found on pages 195 to 197 of your staff packet. A neighborhood meeting was held in the Louisa County Public Meeting Room on December 11th, 2004, at which 2 citizens attended. A recap of the meeting can be found on packet pages 131. The Planning Commission on January 8th, 2025, found the conditional use permit request to be in substantial accordance with the 2040 Louisa County Comprehensive Plan, in accordance with Section 15.22232 of the State Code of Virginia, and forwarded a recommendation of approval with 21 conditions for consideration detailed on packet pages 132 to 133 of your packet. This concludes staff's report, and the applicant is ready to provide a presentation.
Any questions for Ms. Ragland? All right, have the app. Sir?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Jonathan Yates, Arcola Towers. I also have with me Ryan Foltz of Arcola Towers and our site acquisition and zoning specialist, Stuart Squire. First and foremost, I have to thank this gentleman, Tom, and Renee for helping us through the process and getting us here tonight. We really appreciate it. You got some good folks here. We've got some good folks. What we're talking about tonight is a monopole-style wireless communication facility. That's just a fancy way to say cell tower. This is for Verizon Wireless. It's also designed for 3 additional broadband carriers when and if they want to provide better coverage to this area. The facility is being located on the property of Clarence and Evelyn Washington on Charles Lane, and we have to thank the Washingtons. They couldn't be here tonight. They gave us the perfect piece of property. It was right where Verizon wanted to be, and they let us situate it carefully on this property, take advantage of the tree cover, and have incredible setbacks to everything around it. A little background on the property. The property has actually been in the family since 1913. Clarence and Evelyn bought it from his great-aunt Sarah Thompson in 1981. Until 1995, there was a house on the property. They would vacation there. The house burned down. They're thinking about building back, but they can situate us on there. If we're allowed, if Ryan is allowed to build this tower, it takes him about 30 or 60 days to put it up. Most of that's in setting the foundation. The tower itself just goes up in about a day, the erection of it. If we're allowed to do it, this facility will provide coverage, essential coverage to the surrounding area. It will not provide any noise, odor, vibration, fumes, or glare. We have been approved by the FAA. They had 2 important findings: a determination of no hazard air navigation, and also they're not going to require air navigation lighting. We're about 4.3 nautical miles away from the Louisa County Regional Airport, so in everything we've done, the FAA was fine with it. They approved it. Virginia SHPO also reviewed this, the State Historic Preservation Office, and on October 10th, they also approved it as having no effect on any archaeological or historic resource. And I know Tom gave you a mouthful, and I was giving you a mouthful. Let's talk about what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do, and we've met a couple nice young ladies who didn't come to the community meeting, but they came to this meeting just to ask us some questions. You got a deficit there. You got a tower right here that Verizon's on, right on the courthouse. And then we got one that we call Butler Store. It's about 1.66 miles away from this. That area in Charles Lane is left out. It's what we call the deficit area, what we call the donut hole, or what I call not fair to the folks that live out there. Why is it not fair? Throughout most of the state of Virginia, if I'm in Fairfax County, this guy knows something about that, and Henrico County, I can use the phone anywhere. It's not fair in Louisa that folks are getting left out. And that is what Verizon is definitely trying to solve here. And again, with this facility, it's a 197-foot monopole. What is a monopole? Monopole's a pylon steel. It'd be like what you see in front of a Hardee's or a Walmart, except obviously our steel is a lot thicker. We've designed it not only for Verizon, but also for 3 additional broadband carriers. If AT&T, T-Mobile, or the new carrier Boost wants to also improve their coverage in that area, we got space for them not only on the tower, but on the 50-foot by 50-foot compound on the ground. So what we're talking about tonight is wireless infrastructure. Throughout the county, you have power lines, you have telephone lines, various parts, water, sewer. But what we're providing is what's sometimes considered to be the fourth utility, wireless infrastructure. And what we want to do is connect that part of the county so Verizon can utilize what they're doing right here at the building, what we call the Butler Store site, which is an SBA tower about 1.66 miles south. Let's remove this deficit. Let's remove this donut hole. And so hopefully, I made a little bit of a promise to those two young ladies that live on Charles Lane. Please see your way clear so I'm not in trouble and that I don't be called a liar. I'm here for any and all questions. I also have the team here. They're, as you can tell, they're probably more technical than I am. So if it's a real technical question, I'm going to refer to them. But really, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to cover this part of the county, not only for Verizon, but have the capacity for others. So a year from now, if I come here and I talk to those young ladies, they're not mad at me. That's all I ask. Thank y'all.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant? I have one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
So when I first got on the board 8 years ago, it seemed like every month, Verizon or AT&T, somebody was here wanting a siting area for a cell phone tower.
Right.
And probably the vast majority that, and we approved, I think, all of them.
That's good news to me.
Yeah, so we're probably due to go the other way, but we'll see. But,
I'm going to be in big trouble. I'm going to be in big trouble.
But the vast majority of them haven't been built. So if this is approved tonight, when do you see this going under construction and going into service?
We absolutely want it to be built prior to the end of the year. We have to get through a little bit more process with the county, site plan, building permit, and we're ready at Arcola to go as soon as we're good to go and we cleared all regulatory hurdles, we're ready to go. If we can get it done by the end of the year, I think the interface with Verizon about 60 days after that would be fair. So the hope is no later than this time next year.
So you're not just trying to get a prime spot and tie it up and just wait, which is
No,
what
sir.
which is what we saw happen years ago.
They are definitely, that happened years ago. A lot of time was wasted and you had folks out there, and that is not the case now. Verizon has fully determined this site is to go forward. We want to solve the deficit between what we call Louisa Courthouse and Butler Store. And as quickly as this young man, and he's an ambitious young man, as quickly as he can get it done, they want it done.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if we approve this tower tonight and y'all get it up, and my Verizon phone will hopefully go here in town from about 2 bars to 5 bars?
As you go through there, yes, as you're heading out towards 64, we want you, as you cross on Courthouse Road, or if you're on Horseshoe Farm Road, you'll be up. You'll be up.
Okay.
Now,
It won't come
Tanyard,
into
no.
coverage in town?
Tanyard, no. Horseshoe Farm,
Well,
yes.
it'll do.
I need to move.
Your coverage in town is based on what's right next to us right now.
Well, it's pretty poor,
Yeah.
but
But
anyway.
as you leave, as you're going out to that young man's district, that's what we're trying to improve. That's what we're trying to improve. Now, the more folks that start, we talked about county growth, the more folks that get on it, that's what we call capacity. And that's also what this site's designed to do. Relieve a little bit of capacity between, again, what we call Louisa Courthouse right here and the Butler Store site.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would wish to speak on this conditional use permit? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board. Mr. Barnes, or do you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Barlow.
When we were just talking about the towers, and Mr. Woodward asked about how quickly it would be built, one of the conditions we had previously on these towers was that they had to be up and operating within a certain amount of time. I have one down across from the pallet plant on 522 that was 8 years after it was approved before it was built. It finally is functional. Do we need something in here that addresses that? Just one item that says it will be done in a certain amount of time?
Supervisor Barlow, if you'll turn to page 132 of your staff packet, you'll find in the list of 21 conditions,
I'm looking at it.
Condition 5, if the approved new tower facility at this location does not become operational within 2 years from the approved date, then this conditional use permit shall become void.
That's
The
correct.
applicant is allowed one administrative extension of 1 year from the zoning administrator.
I read right over it. That's fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Go ahead, you.
I'll defer to my.
Okay.
Oh, you're gonna do the motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have one more question, Mr. Allen. I read in here that it looks like the FAA maybe said that they don't need any lighting, and I don't know enough about these type of towers.
200 feet.
199 feet, greater than that, around 200.
Okay, so it says here, if it's on a voluntary basis, we recommend it to be installed in accordance with FAA advisory circular. We don't need lights on this tower at all because other towers don't need. Very good. You
I'm
don't
going to
need
turn a
address that.
technical question over to the experts.
Yes, sir. We have the FAA determination, again, with no lights. And again, part of that is we're staying under the 200-foot height limit. And also in this case, they reviewed the distance at 4.3 nautical to the Louisa County Regional Airport.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna be brief. You didn't have to say one word when you stood up there with me, because if you drive down 280, y'all been on the phone with me, and I go to that dip and go, hey, I gotta call you back. Hey, it's been dead there forever. Coming down that dip right down 208.
But you got fiber first.
I did get fiber first.
No, I did.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
I know that dip.
It's been properly moved and second that we approve CUP 2024-08. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye, thank
Any
you.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good thing you're not the next guy, because we're probably due for a no sometime.
I just want to thank you for your time, and I'm just going to ask Supervisor Barnes, why didn't you shut me up right at the start? Why didn't you tell me I had?
I want to tell you, like, dude, you need to stop. Just sit down. You good.
Give me this signal next time. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Everyone
He's
be
on an
careful
hourly
in the next
rate.
couple of
That's
days.
why. Thank you.
You still get it.
I'm gonna find out.
All right, next is an ordinance to approve amendments to Chapter 86, Land Development Regulations, Shoulder Sighting Policy Ordinance 2024-14. Mr. Coon.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. This item is on packet page 205 to 213. I have one amendment here under Section A where it's siting agreements. On the first line, it says solar siting agreements offer a pathway to ensure if you can strike through these and replace it with utility scale solar generation facilities.
Where are you, Mr. Coon? I know that.
I'm sorry. On package page 209,
Okay.
under section A where it says siting agreements. If on that top line, if you can strike through these projects and replace it with utility scale solar generation facilities.
These projects.
To make it clear of the applicability to utility scale.
Utility.
Anything over 2 megawatts.
And that is anything over 2
Utility
megawatts.
scale. Solar.
Solar generation facilities.
Solar generation facilities. Okay.
And then for the financial framework calculations, I just wanted to provide some update on how I got to that. What I did is I estimated the solar capacity in Louisa County based on land use and efficiency trends. So considering our setbacks, buffers, fencing, and stormwater management, utility scale solar would require between 12 and 15 acres per megawatt. And we have the 1,290 acres remaining under the solar cap. So we can anticipate with some type of technology advancement, efficiency may get better. So with the projection being it could exceed 150 megawatts. So for the calculation, that's just where I said for the 1,200 acres remaining, we may be able to get to 150 megawatts. That's where the range is between 100 and 150. That is total megawatts. That is not individual projects, just to make sure to clarify that point. and I stand ready to answer any questions.
So it says this amount will be transferred and utilized in accordance with the citing agreement fund balance. And there is a fund balance memorandum included on page 207, correct?
There's a draft financial
A draft.
framework.
I mean, it
Yes.
doesn't bind the board, and it's not
We-
all inclusive.
We would have to, yes, take that to the board and have the financial
Well,
framework.
I just wanted to, I wanted to read the four off that are here. Because one of them I'd like to have, not tonight, but a great deal more public conversation as we move forward. And again, this list could be 400. It could be 2. Any board can decide what they want to do. But the draft allocation breakdown example memo here, housing programs, 25% of total funds, agricultural land protection, 30%, which could be used for the purchase of developmental rights, helping to preserve an estimated 127 to 300 acres of farmland annually. That's the one that I wanted to highlight publicly because I'm very interested as we move forward to talk about that. Stream restoration, 22.5% of the total funds could support efforts to restore an estimated 0.57 to 1.4 miles of local waterways per year. And HAB mitigation on Lake Anna, 22% of the funds. Whether those funds come from the siting agreement, if we pass it, which quite frankly I doubt that they would, but as they come from additional funds that the county may draw in over the next several years, I just want to state that I have been interested in this purchase of developmental rights for agricultural land protection for about the last 7 years. Fauquier County has a program that does that. We invest in economic development to attract business and economic growth here, which is what is going to spur our ability to have funding to probably purchase these developmental rights, or at least consider it if the board wants to do that. So I wanted to highlight that. And as we get future revenue, I think that's a subject that we should discuss a great deal. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
when you just read the part about developmental rights, this doesn't make us have to buy those, though.
No.
It just allows us.
It's an
to have the-
example.
Right.
It would be an example of what you could use the
Right.
revenue
Yeah,
for.
it's an example. I just put it out because I think I know that it's not a unanimous decision on this
No,
board.
it ain't.
But as we move forward to look at ways to preserve the rural character of the county, that may be an option. That may be an option, so.
And so the framework that we looked at this is to ensure that the developers and not residents have to bear the cost of infrastructure impacts, farmland conservation, and then water quality protections. So without these contributions, the taxpayers could be left to fund solutions that are created by these large-scale solar projects. So that's essentially like I said, the framework is to draft show that.
I have a question, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir.
This is a large and unwieldy set of amendments in my mind. It's a lot to comprehend. It seems like they may even grow government instead of lessen it. And I think a lot of us want to lessen government influence, but the only thing that scares me more than local government overreach is state government overreach. And I think the way I understand it, some of this is actually intended to perhaps stave off something that could happen in 2026. I'm not able to predict the future. And when I do, I don't do it very well. I'm not even as good as you with your snowfall predictions, but I do have
2 to 70, could be wrong.
I do have faith in our staff, in our CUP process. And I think that the county comprehensive plan pretty much sums it up very easily, and I agree with that. And that is to try and maintain and preserve our rural heritage here in Louisa County. I do have to have some questions, perhaps at least addressed about this before I can make a decision, an informed decision. And one of those is, who would administer to, if somebody should take us up on these solar siting amendments and put what I like to call a photovoltaic generation station, because they're not farms. They're not farms.
They're not farms.
They're power stations. So call it what it is. Who would administer to the housing program? Who would determine where these funds would go? And then who would determine the agricultural land protection, where we would buy those?
So these 4 examples are exactly that, examples. And I don't want to put, I'll answer this because I don't want to put you on the spot. This could be a list of 4 different things. It could be a list of 400 things. The Board of Supervisors, when they would decide how they wanted to expend that money, if there was money that came in from the siting agreement, the Board of Supervisors would make that determination. And the enforcement of this ordinance would be like any other, like the current ordinance, which will go through community development as a solar project would come in.
Okay. And community development themselves would determine where that funding would go, or we would tell them where it would go?
No, community development has nothing to do with the funding. Funding would go, we would look at our finance director, how much funding is there that has come in from that, and then we would determine, or no, a board would determine how that funding would be spent.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
And it could be this, or anything else that you want to put on the list. This is just 4 examples. Yes. Yes, sir.
As I think probably everybody sitting here knows, solar doesn't make any difference to me one way or another. You know, I really have no appetite to see any utility scale solar, but I also don't think that utility scale belongs at 2% or 2 megawatts. I think it belongs back at 5 megawatts where it was originally. But we're not talking about that tonight. But what we are talking about is PDRs, purchase of development rights. I understand it's a draft, but I think we need to talk about that at length.
That's not part of the ordinance, though.
Well, I think we need to talk at that at length before we even put this in here as a potential option. Because at this point, I have no appetite to take tax money and buy development rights from people. My opinion could change on that, but that's the way my opinion is right now. I understand all about Fauquier County. I've heard it from multiple people, but I don't know that I think that this is the way for Louisa County to go. So, you know, I'm kind of with Mr. McCotter in that I'm afraid if we continue to tighten things up, all we're doing is leading Richmond to make sure that they pass something in the coming years that's going to give them the right to tell us what we have to put on our land. So I do have that concern. But I do not like seeing the PDRs all of a sudden come out in print, even though it's not looking to be added to this at this time. So.
Yes, sir.
When I was reading through this, and maybe I've got a different take on it, years ago when they were moving the hog farms from the Tidewater area, and we'd come up with the A1 zoning and that kind of thing, they were, especially in Virginia Beach, looking at purchase of development rights to keep, you know, if the taxpayers or the citizens wanted to preserve a farm or something like that from developers purchasing it, they would go together and do that, and it was another option. The way I was reading this, I would think that before you utilize that, you are certainly going to have an ordinance, you know, something in place to define the purchase of development rights. In other words, the way I read this, it's more or less something that a suggestion of what it could go to. I think if there were funding that came through one of these, and probably even in the interim, we would have to define some of this stuff and decide how you were going to use it and whether you even utilized, the county even went for development rights. It was just sort of something that it could be targeted to. I mean, that's the way I read it. I didn't see it, because right now, we don't have, to my knowledge, any definition or process for the purchase of development rights or anything like that.
We don't.
It's just would be something that, a signing agreement could have monies for or something.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Yes, sir.
follow up, Mr.
Sure.
Barlow. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Barlow, but the fact that this shows up on this page, in this document, that in my year and almost 2 months on this board, have never seen it in anything. That means it's on people's minds. You've been on this, doing this a lot longer than I have. You know how it works. So, I appreciate your example of Virginia Beach and the hog farms. And it very well could come to Louisa County goes to this. I'm just not ready to do it without a lot of discussion prior to seeing it show up on documents.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Yes, sir.
One clarification regarding the state code, we did also amend to increase the, from approval to generation from 3 years to 4 years, because there is a state code section that allows the landowner developer a minimum of 3 years to commence the project, which that's just to start the project. So to make sure that we're not in conflict with that, it was extended to 4 years. So just
Yes,
to
sir.
explain that reasoning.
Mr. Chairman, I do have another question. On page 209 of 215, you have number 4. Yep, it's 210 of 215.
we're saying-
Yep, I stand corrected. Compensation for adjacent property owners to mitigate the impact on adjacent property owners is recommended solar project operators provide $500 per parcel per year to neighboring landowners. That's an electric bill abatement or property tax abatement. I'm having a difficult time, and there may be cases of this, but I don't know. Is there actual, Supervisor Barnes, you may be able to illuminate me on this. Are there instances where people's property value has been affected negatively by a solar farm or a photovoltaic generation station?
Would you like to answer that, Mr. Burns, or would you want me to?
You go ahead.
Yeah, you can go below Belcher for about 5 miles, and every farm down that has had, I understand there's a big lawsuit in the works. So, yeah, there has been definite negative impacts. That's the most proficient.
Right.
I mean, you've seen
terrible.
streams washed out.
I'm just
from-
getting in the car tomorrow, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Drive on over there.
yeah, yeah. It's
really
it
Oh,
can
yeah,
be bad.
I'm completely aware of it. I'm just trying to see if there was an example of actual, assessment abatement because of the damage. I mean,
No, they don't.
it's awful what
They
the
don't. They
sentiment
haven't
erosion-
offered anything. The closest you've seen offer is you have seen Dominion come and stand at that
He-
podium
he used the
and
word-
apologize.
He used the word assessment abatement.
Yeah, we haven't. No, the county has.
County has not lowered any assessments because of that, so.
Yes.
I tell you, I said in a meeting, there's one that's trying to come in the district right now, and this was actually something that they do. They offer, if you're a direct neighbor, and they feel like, they say, hey, we directly impact the people that touch us, and we recognize that. I thought it was very proactive of them, actually.
Active.
So much that we offer them a credit on their electric bill every month of X. And it's while it is nice to do, it is very self-serving, because it then takes your neighbor who's then opposed to it and potentially makes them not opposed to it. So, but anyway, so I just thought it was something neat. I sat in the meeting the first time I heard it, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. That's a good way to take your enemy and at least make them neutral, if
Well, it's
nothing
a
else.
precedent, too.
It is.
Anything else for Mr. Coon? Thank you, sir. I'll open the public hearing. I do have one card. Telly Manos.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Telly Manos. I'm a developer with successful solar projects all along the East Coast. I have projects in Maryland, Virginia, Carolinas, and Georgias. You'll have to excuse me, I need to change some of my notes here because there were some amendments to this proposed ordinance. Last month, the Planning Commission recommended rejection on all points except for point number 3, which is the 3-year time limitation on these siding agreements. And as Mr. Kuhn said, they're extending that to 4 years. But I would like to urge caution from the developer's point of view because this time limitation creates a perverse set of incentives for the developer to rush through the engineering due diligence as quickly as possible in order to meet this time limitation. Now, specifically, I'm referring to the stormwater erosion control, civil and geotechnical engineering studies. These are drafted, redrafted. We coordinate with the county. Sometimes it gets rejected. We redraft them again. There's second opinions, there's consultations, there's regulatory reviews. I would not recommend rushing this or providing incentive for the developer to rush through them. You really want to cross your T's and dot your I's on these to make sure it minimizes risk to the community.
Excellent.
Additionally, I would like to point out that it takes at least 3 years to interconnect to the PJM queue, which is the transmission system that transmits electricity across the state. For reference, projects that were submitted to PJM in 2021 are only just now getting studied this year. And that extends to Rappahannock Electric Co-op as well, which is the local co-op that serves this community. We are in a time of unprecedented electricity demand growth, and us developers are trying to rise to meet that occasion and supply that generation, but we're overloading the queue, and it takes time to balance into the grid. So with a 3-year or 4-year, in this case, limitation, you could potentially have your siding agreement expire before you even begin construction on the interconnection. That will stifle investment and it will drive away development. Finally, I'd like to point out that most solar leases have a 5-year option period on them with the host landowners. So if the siding agreement expires before that option period is up, you're cutting your landowners short potential revenue on their solar leases. So from a developer, I would recommend setting the time limitation to 5 years. That would give time for a photovoltaic project to clear the queue. It would maximize revenue that goes to the private landowner that's offering these solar leases, and it would give plenty of time for engineering and regulatory review on the project itself. Next, I'd like to discuss the payment value, currently proposed at $156,000.
15 seconds.
A solar facility makes about $120,000 to $140,000 per megawatt per year in Virginia. So the proposed dollar value is more than the facility even makes in revenue. And that's before taxes, operational expenses are taken out. I'm happy to answer follow-up questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Chair Adams, members of the board. My name is Skylar Zunk here on behalf of Energy Right. As you may know, Energy Right's a Virginia-based conservative energy nonprofit dedicated to county-level education. To date, we've assisted over 70 counties on different solar policies and projects. We're very proud of that. It's been an absolute pleasure working with Louisa County in the past on different ordinance updates that have come in the past few years. As some of you all may have seen, we had Governor Glenn Youngkin at our legislative reception on the eve of Local Government Day about 3 weeks ago. He shared a message that we've heard before. We absolutely need more energy in Virginia. Per capita, Virginia imports more energy than any other state in the nation. We import more energy per capita than California imports from its neighboring states. We're approaching an energy emergency. We need to take our all of the above strategy seriously and permit as much energy as we possibly can for our economies, our businesses, and our families to grow. As a small government conservative organization, we absolutely respect local control. But that arrangement absolutely requires that that localities work in good faith with folks trying to bring new energy to the grid. I'm going to get at some of the financials here most specifically, but my big question is, why is this ordinance being proposed? You already lowered your cap down from 3% to 2%. You've sent the signal that you will accept some solar, but not blanket the county with it. Why are we moving forward with this? I question the wisdom in adopting siting agreement policies that over 100 times the next highest tax solar project in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This would be like asking a homeowner of a $500,000 home to pay $50,000 a year in taxes to the local government. Back of the envelope calculation, this would be 100% tax on a given solar facility over an 8 to 10 year period. This is truly an incredible amount. If you were to apply this same structure to Lake Anna, they'd pay 180% of the county's bottom line every single year. Like I mentioned, this 100X is the next highest solar tax project in the Commonwealth. I do want to point out that in contrary to the 12 to 15 acres per megawatt that was cited in some of the memos, the average of acres per megawatt since 2021 is down to below 7 acres. We have ways to mitigate these problems. You have House Bill 206. You have DEQ regulations, making sure the quality and quantity of water remain the same. I worry that this sets a bad precedent. And I agree with the gentleman's comments about the state taking over control if localities can't use their authority wisely. One last point, I do want to mention, I believe there's a recent state code requiring a 5-year special exception permit horizon. You guys might want to look into that. That was passed last year. Thank you.
Dylan, hold on a minute. During public comment period, we can't ask questions. And I know you went to school with my son.
Skylar, sorry.
Skylar, yeah.
Yes.
You went to school with my son, right?
I worked on campaign.
Yeah,
for your son.
I knew
Yes,
you
sir.
had some relationship with him.
It's conflict of interest.
Yeah, it's a conflict. I have to recuse myself.
I was an unpaid intern.
Yeah, okay. So this comment, this question we hear all the time, and when we had our legislative workshop with our senators and delegates, we talked about removing local zoning, and solar is obviously one, data centers is another. At one point, even housing density was being considered. Whether we pass this ordinance or this amendment to our ordinance tonight, don't you feel like we're going to see, I mean, again, somebody said they couldn't look into the future. I can't look into the future. But depending on how our gubernatorial election goes, I mean, I think that's coming anyway.
You know, I'd respectfully disagree. It could certainly come. I mean, we have no idea what these elections will bring, but I don't want to. I like local control.
I do too. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just telling you I'm afraid it's going to come.
Well,
a mandate of 4 or 5%, and the question is, and I'm not really, I'm just kind of using you as a soundboard here, but a mandate of 4 or 5% from the state government that your available land has to be put into a solar facility. I mean, who does that impact? Because that's not going to be Fairfax. That's not going to be Arlington. That's probably not even going to be Prince William.
Cheap
now.
land, sir.
It's cheap farm agricultural land that, as Mr. McCotter stated earlier, we're taking from ag and forestry, and we're turning it into an industrial use. I mean, that's what these solar projects are. I never call them a solar farm. And at this point, we have 5,800 acres, Tom, something like that, 5,800 acres that's already been approved or developed in the county?
Chairman, we have 5,171 and change acres that's been approved for a conditional use permit.
Okay. So, you know, thank you, sir. That's why whoever said earlier, we have a great staff. So, you know, you look at this all of the above approach. I hear talk, maybe Unit 3 comes online at Dominion. I hear the governor come here and talk about small modular reactors. He didn't come here and talk about solar. He came here and talked about small modular reactors, which have a much smaller footprint. In my personal opinion, and I think the gentleman before you said it, I think in my mind, the reason I'm going to support these changes, it sends exactly the message I want to send about solar in Louisa County. But again, I understand your concerns, and I'm really not asking you to respond to this. I understand your concerns, but I think we're going to see the heavy hand of the state government try to come into play and override local zoning ordinances anyway. At least we have something in place that when that happens, we can point to the to the ordinance that we have in place. But I do
Would
appreciate
you
your
allow me
comment.
30
Sure.
seconds?
I
I would just fear that this would give the state another opportunity to say, you can only tax solar projects, but so much. If state siting comes, I don't want it to adversely affect communities like Louisa, who have very diligently considered projects on their demerits and merits, said yes to some, said no to others. You guys are best at calling balls and strikes. If the state comes in and says that they need 3%, maybe they say they need 2%. That's already the policy you all have adopted. You guys are in a good position to call balls and strikes there. The localities that have put preemptive bans in and just said, we're not going to see any solar in the county. Maybe they adopt the same framework, taxing 100% of the project's value. Those counties that haven't come to the table, been thoughtful about this, are going to be on the chopping block first for state siting. So we're a small government conservative organization, just trying to see this all of the above strategy happen on a level playing field. Making solar pay 100% of its value in taxes every 8 to 10 years really isn't level. We'd really like to engage with you all. I'd be happy to come present just our thoughts more concisely at a future meeting, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
You get more public
Oh,
hearing.
do you have anyone else wish to? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to speak when we get done with public hearing.
Something too. Amy Boyer, Jackson District. Did not intend to speak, but it prompted, it really has nothing to do with this issue on the table, except for in a way that a discussion that comes up in my house about things we see in the county a lot. My husband is a civil engineer and a surveyor. The problem that I think it's in your district, with the other solar farm, wouldn't have happened if a county engineer, not solely dependent on the engineers provided by the other people. I know we haven't had a county engineer in Louisa County because we were small. That's changing. I mean, as Louise Bumpus used to say, I'm not from here because I've only lived here since I was 5 or 6, which makes me laugh all the time. I'm a newcomer. But I grew up here. I've raised my children here. They're living here. They're going to come back here, hopefully, stay here. We're growing. It's crazy. So maybe it's the time for the county to consider a county engineer position. Nothing against our staff. I think they do an awesome job, but that's a very specific thing that, my husband and I got into an argument the other day about drainage in our driveway because my brain did not understand what his engineer mind said. I thought I knew what I was talking about, and I didn't. So maybe it's a good time to think about an engineer locally for the county. As all these big new developments, subdivisions, Mr. Barlow could speak to it probably better than I could, but, all this stuff with Amazon, these solar fields, a lot of that drainage issue, erosion stuff should have been caught before it ever got done. So that's all I'm going to say. It's just something that comes up, but not something I'm going to normally drive up here to tell you all.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Christensen. I live in Culpeper County. I'm sort of here by accident. I was in town to do business today. I want to watch you guys operate. But Culpeper's had a very painful experience with solar. We're similar to you all. We're about 400 square miles. I think you're about 500 square miles. And early in, we were very heavily lobbied. And one proposal got passed, about 1,000 acres, 4 years of litigation. Passed on a 3-2 vote. 2 of the supervisors recused themselves. It kind of got real cute. The most senior supervisors kind of knew how to recuse themselves well. But anyway, the bottom line is people are schooled up on there now. And what the question for the county always on solar is, what's in it for the county? What we learned in Culpeper was eventually when these things become operational, they're a public utility. And 95% of what you pay on the machinery and tools tax is negated here. It's not paid. So you're paying, and so we've ended passing these. And the most logical thing people are talking about now is requiring industrial zoning before you can even apply for a solar permit because it's an industrial use. So why shouldn't it be zoned as industrial before you even consider it? Madison County's done that. I think some other counties have done that as well. So bottom line, you have to ask yourself what's in it for the county. And our county, after a lot of research and things, found it not a whole lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. there anyone else that would wish to
Mr.
address the
Chairman, I'd
board?
like to speak.
All right, seeing that, I'll close the public comment period.
Sorry.
Pardon me? No, bring it back to the board. Any other questions for staff?
I don't have a question, but I just want to, I've just sat here and listened, and it's something that I've said to our legislators when they've come. Louisa County is one of the top producing energy counties of the state. When is another county going to step up? How much more do you want to take off of our backs and take off of our homeowners and our landowners here in our community? How much more do you want to take away? And we're still moving forward with power. We still have small modular reactors coming. We still have solar that's already in the works. I think Tom said, was it approved 5,000 acres already? How much more are we supposed to give of our county? And that's just the way I feel to solar, and we are already doing our fair share, I believe. In my opinion, we are doing our fair share for the state in energy. That's all.
Anyone else have any comments? Mr. Williams.
Ms. Jones had a fact sort of right, I think. I think we're the 34th, yeah, sort of. I think we're the 34th largest power producing county in the country.
At the top.
Not in the state, in the country.
In the country, wow.
In the country.
That's
We
even
also, we got SMRs coming, and we also have a nice facility here called Dry Cask Storage Facility. So I want to be very gentle, and we had a meeting with Mr. Deeds, and it was one of our legislative meetings, and he made the comment and said, well, we're not going to let the counties hold the state hostage for the power needs. Well, maybe the better way to run that around would be to say, who's producing what in power, and what cost do you have coming from it? And I tell you that our dry cask storage facility, where we store nuclear waste,
That's true.
sitting up here on the side of the nuclear reactor at Lake Anna, which is a wonderful asset we have, has value that most people don't even consider and think about. Now, all that was supposed to go to a national repository at Yucca Mountain, which the federal government said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. So it's old bait and switch, if we want to be honest and want to talk about it. So, Skylar, I understand what you're talking about. I go back, and I'll say this out loud. I've said it before. If I was a developer of, what's the name of that place? Belcher Solar Facility, the DEQ would have had me in prison, sir. I would have been in prison, and I'd be broke and bankrupt, and they would have everything I own. But it wasn't me. It was Dominion Energy. And I don't know that I got the facts exactly right, but I think they were fined $50,000 for destroying, I guess it's a creek, a small river, whatever you want to call it, miles of it. And to my understanding, it's still not fixed to this day. So yes, we've had enough. We're done. And if this kills it and this does it, I'm all in. So it may not hold up in court. We may get sued, but you know what? We won't know until we go to court, will we? So, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We got 2 nuclear reactors. We got SMRs coming. We got other power generation facilities here. I propose when we get done with these SMRs that we're going to move up from 34th. And I propose the only reason, and one of the major reasons that solar companies want to come here is because it's a low-cost development, because we have transmission lines leaving North Anna, coming through our county. They can tie in easily, and our land is relatively inexpensive. So, I'm sorry. We've had enough here. So, yeah. You can quote me. You can call me up as a witness. Did you say that on February the 18th, whatever date it is? I did.
I feel the same.
So I think we're just done. Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board?
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adopt this ordinance amending.
Some discussion.
Pardon me?
I'd like some discussion when you get to it.
I thought
I'm not quite.
Okay, go.
Oh, he's still going.
Any further discussion? Mr. Williams?
There he is. Now we have a motion. I would say, to be helpful, that we exclude the memorandum here. I know it's not technically in the motion.
I agree.
I understand what your points are. Once the camel gets his nose in the tent, we haven't had time to flesh all that out yet. Makes a lot of sense to me. I personally think it probably has some merits. I haven't fleshed it out, but I'm willing to have discussions, and I don't think I want to tag it in here with our solar ordinance. There's a list of examples, the things that could be used. I'd certainly be happy to strike that example and come up with something, leave just 3 or whatever we need to do.
And Mr. Williams, you're talking about further discussion on the PDRs.
Yes, I am. Yes, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
So, just to be clear, because number 2 does allot.
I just say you bifurcate the memorandum here, and we're looking at approving the ordinance.
Okay.
And I don't even want, in fact, I want to specifically add to the motion that the memorandum not even be included in there.
So that would also require an amendment to number 2 that just says that any monies allocated or allotted from a siting agreement would go into a fund balance, because that does start to bring in a percentage of 25% here, here, and here. So if we're going to eliminate it, we would just say that those monies would go into a fund balance, correct?
Go into a fund balance of which the Board of Supervisors would determine where it goes, or just a fund balance. Just a fund balance, period. I'm good with that.
Mr. Williams, I want to make sure I am 100% clear on what we're going to be voting on potentially here momentarily.
I'm going to repeat it in a minute.
Thank you.
So the motion would be that we change siting agreements, solar siting agreements offer a pathway to ensure utility-scale solar generating facilities, not these projects. And then allocation to a fund balance.
Period.
A fund balance, period.
Number 1?
It's number 2.
Okay.
Allocation to a fund balance.
Got it.
Agree.
And it does not include.
The memorandum is just a miscellaneous piece of paper that was stuck in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Has nothing to do with that.
Yes.
Memorandum had those suggested things.
It did. We're just.
But that's part of it.
It's
What
not-
page are you on?
207.
207?
Memorandum starts on 206, 207, the agreement's on 209 and 210.
2%
got
for fund
you.
balance, got it. What's the other part of it? Number 3, timeline?
No. No, that's it.
1 and 2.
Well,
Just 2.
everything. We just made changes to the siting agreement and to the number 2. It's as written,
So
except for those two changes.
the motion that's on the floor is to approve the CUP with the following amendments. Under A, on page 209 of your packet, siting agreements, solar siting agreements offer a pathway to ensure utility-scale solar generation facilities contribute da-da-da-da-da.
Yep.
Number 2, it would allocate these funds to a fund balance, period. Doesn't give any examples. It takes away the memorandum of understanding. That's the motion that's on the floor. Mr. Williams made it. Who seconded the
I
motion?
did.
And you agree to those
I'm
changes?
agreeing.
All right.
It's changed, not a CUP.
It is an ordinance
It's
change.
ordinance change.
It is
See,
ordinance change.
that's right. I'm sorry. Ordinance change. All right. Any further discussion?
I have a comment, a
Yes.
question. Can we double check? I think Skylar noted that he thought state regulation said that it had to be 5 years instead of 4 years. I mean, I don't want to have to do this again because
Did you say that, Skylar?
You did.
that was his passing comment if he left the electorate.
No, I know we looked into this.
I'd be interested to know the state code reference.
You know it, Skylar?
2024 bill by Delegate Kerry Coyner, permit extension bill, special exception. I'm not a lawyer.
What's the state code section?
Huh?
What's the state code section? I mean,
Yeah,
we can't look up a book.
I leave it like it is. If we need to modify it, we'll come back and
Yep.
modify it.
Any other discussion?
We could-
Well, yes.
The court can compel us to.
Yes.
If we changed it to 5 years, would that be, it would still, I don't see where that.
Wouldn't hurt
would
my
make-
feelings.
Make a lot of difference.
Is that an amendment?
I would suggest that.
Do you
because-
accept the amendment?
I'll make as part of my motion, take it in a second.
Do you?
We can make it the
Sorry.
main
So now
motion.
we've changed it to 5 years so that
There you go.
we're in.
Boom. There we are.
All right, do you need me to repeat it, or does everybody have it? All right, any other?
Number 3.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So 3 would go to 4, would go to 5.
And thank you for bringing that to our attention, Skylar. Not sure you got what you came here tonight for, but at least you kept us
Hey,
straight.
Part of pie is better than no pie.
But, all right, any other discussion? I am going to add one more thing on discussion that I just wanted to mention. And while we have, it has very little to do with this amendment, I guess, but I am glad that in the original draft, under the breakdown on the funding memorandum, that we have gotten this, the PDR is having a public discussion. That is something, I agree. I don't know if it works or not. I agree with Mr. Woodward. I agree with Mr. Williams. I don't know if it will work in this county, but I really think it's something we should look into in this county moving forward. So I'm glad it's had a public airing here, even though it's been stripped out of here. So with that, all those in favor of this
As amended.
amendment to Chapter 86 as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kuhn, as I hit the thing. All right, next up is a resolution authorizing the disposition of real property commonly known as the Shannon Hill Regional Business Park belonging to the County of Louisa. Mr. Wade.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good evening. Purpose of the public hearing tonight is to consider transfer ownership of the Shannon Hill Regional Business Park to the IDA. Virginia Code 15.2-1800 subsection B authorizes the locality to sell at public or private sale, exchange, lease, pledge, subordinate interest in, or otherwise dispose of real property, provided no such real property is disposed of prior to having a public hearing. Transferring the Shannon Hill Regional Business Park to the IDA is historically consistent with other publicly owned business parks in the county. The Industrial Development Authority has owned the Air Park property, Air Park West property, the Cook Industrial Rail Park property. And it's not uncommon to see this in other localities as well throughout the state where properties are publicly owned for marketing to industrial commercial clients. The county recently gave notice to proceed to Aspen Construction to start the linear utility project from Ferncliff to Shannon Hill. The water tank is 95% complete. We're just going through punch list items to finalize that project. And with the start of the utility project, we're at a point where we've overcome a hurdle we've experienced in the past about landing prospects because we couldn't align our construction timeline for utilities with their construction timeline for their new facilities. And now at this point, we can start marketing heavily to permitted uses in the Shannon Hill Regional Business Park that this body adopted in 2019 as part of the entitlements process. Virginia Code 15.2-4905 grants IDAs, EDAs, certain powers or tremendous powers that the governing bodies don't have when it comes to disposing of land, selling land, granting money, giving loans, things of that nature. And it allows the IDA to move much faster when we're marketing to permitted users of the Shannon Hill Regional Business Park to close those deals. And that is a competitive advantage for us, whereas if we had to go through public hearings with this body to sell to permitted uses we've already established that we want in that park, that could be a disadvantage in our marketing and recruitment efforts. Any prospective users that are not part of the 2019 entitlements approval would thereby need to come back to the Planning Commission and the board for additional approval. Under the IDA's ownership, all sales or revenue from land sales would revert back to the county. The IDA is going to consider that Thursday morning at their meeting and also consider acceptance of the transfer to the IDA of the Shannon Hill Regional Business Park. And if approved tonight and then subsequent approval by the IDA, it authorizes the county administrator to put in motion the documentation to perfect the transfer to the IDA thereafter. That concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Wade? I guess I have one. I mean, the long and short of it is if this action is approved by the board, it just simply puts the county in a better position on a marketable piece of property to attract the investment that we've been trying to attract since we bought it in 2019. Is that kind of a simplistic way to put it?
Yeah, that's true. And as we've done in the past, I mean, the board will be apprised of any deals that the IDA is considering with regard to this property or any other properties they currently manage throughout the county.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right, well, yes, sir. Mr. Barlow.
Once, when this goes to, once this goes to the IDA, if a prospective buyer comes in, is that something that would this board still have some purview over that?
I think by virtue of approving the permitted uses in the zoning case in 2019, I think you would certainly have advanced knowledge of that sale. But I think because we have established by right uses within that park, if it falls into that category, then I'm making an assumption here, but I think it's good to sell to a by right user that we've established we want in that park.
Any other question? Thank you, Mr. Wade. I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this resolution? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Is there any discussion? What's the pleasure of the board?
So move.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve this authorizing the disposition of real property. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mr.
So
Barnes.
move.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.